All right, welcome back to DHR. I'm Tom Nixon with Joseph Fenwick, and today is Brian Hoffner. I'm sorry, the legendary Brian Hoffner. Sorry, I messed that up. Forgot your title.
It's not required.
More of an honorable title, yeah.
He retired recently from the Houston Police Department. He was a firearms instructor out there for, 20 years?
Yeah, beyond, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was in class 164 in 1995. Joseph was in 165. Mm-hmm. And if I recall correctly, you were the outdoor instructor. There were indoor and outdoor instructors.
Yeah, outdoor range at the time, which was, the in-service officer range versus the cadet range. So
Okay. So when I started with HPD, you had to either have 4 years of college or 4 years of military. What did y'all have to have when you started?
I believe it's the same. I came directly from the military. I had like a 2-week break between the military and HPD. That's why I came to HPD. In fact, I had tested also for LAPD and got accepted, but I would have started in like October of '82. And Riverside PD, which was my old stomping ground there in Southern California, and I got accepted there, but I would have started in August or something. And I said, well, shit, I don't want to bag groceries for months. I've done that already. So I just came to Houston because that was a 2-week wait.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was class 103.
So you grew up in Southern California?
Yeah. I was, what a great place to grow up. Didn't care so much about the politics then. And,
Well, the Republicans were in charge, so everything was peaceful.
Yeah, I mean, Ronald Reagan was there. I played my trumpet for him when they opened Lake Paris.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was so. And I was just at the Ronald Reagan Library, I don't know, 2 months ago. I visit that. I'm a regular member there, so that's a great place.
So you graduated high school, you joined the Air Force?
I did. I was K-9, and I worked an attack dog in the Philippines. Which was a lot of fun,
What would you attack the Filipinos for?
We called them intruders. Yeah, because you
Security police.
Didn't even have perimeter fence. 26 miles of perimeter, no fence, because if you put a fence up, they'll steal it. So, but there was the jungle, and the jungle was the highway in and out of the base, basically the washouts, and so as K-9, that's where we were.
So what was the name of the Air Force base?
What's that?
What's the name of the Air Force base?
Clark Air Base. Not there anymore.
Oh, okay. So that's not like that Louisiana prison that doesn't have a back fence. It's just a swamp with alligators.
Yeah, that's pretty much. But not alligators so much, but anacondas, pythons, and cobras and leeches. Lots of leeches.
Oh, well, question, is it true when you would have to go to these like Philippine, Vietnam, or Korean assignments that you had to get like 16 different shots?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And the thing is to get out of there without requiring a whole bunch more shots.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, because when I was at Camp Shelby, one of our instructors had come back from Vietnam, and he was stopped by, I don't think it was immigration. I guess it's the military does an assessment of you on the way back, and he had some rash in some part of his body that he wasn't supposed to, and they detained him for like 6 weeks before he could return.
They always threatened us with the black clap, is what they would call it.
Oh, really?
There's no cure for it. And if you get it, you're never going to leave the Philippines. So it's like, well,
Is that true?
I'm sure it's a wives' tale, but it was effective.
But they threatened it.
Yeah.
As with everything in the military.
But I did get out of there, and it was a blast. It was fun. Basically we K-9, we had a blank check to stop the intrusion. So it was a lot of fun.
Did Filipinos try to get on the base to steal stuff? Or what?
Yeah, they'd steal everything. Off the flight line, the hoses, the connections, out of the homes that mostly officers lived in, and had stereos, and they would steal everything.
Oh, really?
And yeah, it would. But it was fun.
What year was this?
Fun to stop them. This was 1977 to I think 79. I was there.
Okay, and then you came back and joined HPD, or what?
I came back stateside, and I worked on narcotics dog, and then a bomb dog, for a while. I had a damn good bomb dog. Ace was his name, and he was like considered the best bomb dog in the free world. So I'd get on loan, put on loan to Secret Service and stuff like that a lot, and it was a blast.
Okay.
That too, but.
What made you want to leave and become a police officer?
Well, that was my ultimate plan all along. I joined the military and I joined the Air Force because the Air Force had the closest thing to a real police force.
Okay.
Back then, it was you were either a security police counting rivets on a B-52, or you were law enforcement doing law enforcement work. So I guaranteed the law enforcement field that would cover me for 4 or 5 years until I was old enough to join the police department, when you had to be 21. My parents signed for me at age 17 to join the military. I graduated halfway through my senior year. I graduated early, I had enough credits, and I got a Samsonite suitcase for a going away present. Like, yeah, go away. And I did.
We love you. Here's your suitcase.
It's a getaway present.
Yeah. So but it was a getaway present too. It was a small town, and I didn't want to be stuck in that small town, ready to get out and find my way. And
Did you do basic in San Antonio? Or
I did. Yeah, I did basic there, the law enforcement academy, and then canine training, all there at Lackland.
Okay, and you were introduced to the heat in Texas.
Oh yeah,
And thought it was such a good idea you would live here.
like 4 a.m. When you get off the bus and they line you up, and it's like, it's not only it's hot and it's humid. You don't have the humidity in SoCal. So.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And you also have that nice Pacific cool breeze that comes in the evening, and there is none of that in Texas.
Yeah,
There's just
no.
mosquitoes,
Yeah.
really. The breeze you feel is from the mosquitoes.
Right. Yeah.
The breeze is hot.
So, all right. So you're in the Air Force. You decided to go law enforcement. You applied to, I guess, several different agencies. You wound up in Houston.
Yeah. It was the first where I started first, and never looked back. It's been so much fun, and
Do you wish you had gone to another agency or tried another agency?
I went in the Air Force, worked K-9. I could have been a Marine. Went to Houston. Could have went LAPD. But the one thing about Houston is we didn't really follow. We made our own path at Houston, and I don't think we, the officers, were in the shadow of any other department. And one thing I did like about Houston, and still do, is because there are so many extra jobs, officers that need extra money can work extra jobs for extra money. They don't have to take a bribe or something. So I think we've had our bad apples, but for the most part, Houston Police is a very clean and honorable department.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right. Because we interviewed Sergeant Anderson, and he told us the other side of that for an hour.
Yeah,
He talked about the bad apples.
Yeah, I know exactly.
There are some. I mean, I'm sure more than we realize, because
and was that Chris, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Chris had he had to fight a lot of the upper admin, and I'm not saying I didn't, especially being in firearms training when we were changing so much in the 90s. It was a fight. Everything was a fight, but it was a fight worth fighting.
Okay, so let's talk about that. You joined HPD. How long were you on patrol?
Not very long. I mean, 6-7 years, something like that. Northeast, though, the Rock, and it's.
An academy position came up, and you applied for it, and then there you are.
Yeah, I mean, I applied over the phone, but I was kind of, I'd had my suspensions, my Class 1 complaints for excessive force that are cleared by not substantiated or whatever it is.
Not sustained?
Unfounded.
Not unfounded, or it just not sustained, I think. It's something
Yeah,
like
not
that.
sustained. Saying
And
they're not saying you did or you didn't.
Yeah, even though the guy a year into it wrote a letter and says, I was lying, it didn't really happen. So, but anyways,
Because he could be lying.
yeah.
So they not sustained you.
And I'm not saying I was burnt out. I was just ready for something new. And I'd always been a shooter. I shot distinguished at Northeast while I was on patrol.
Okay.
We'd go shoot a lot, me and my partner at the time, Brent Ashby. And so we both shot distinguished. He ended up at the range too. But I just felt at the range I could do a lot more to help officers stay safe and get home to their families. And then if you're helping officers shoot straight, you're helping the citizens because they're not getting, knocked down by a bunch of stray bullets like NYPD or something,
Right, fair enough. Okay, so what was the kind of the training regimen and the policies around shooting in the 1990s that you believe needed to be changed?
Well, we just had a lot of archaic thought principles in training, and especially in firearms training. Cadet training hadn't changed in decades. They were just still doing some very archaic stuff, and one thing about Houston, they sent me everywhere.
When you say archaic stuff, do you mean still using revolvers as opposed to automatic?
No, I mean more the mindset of firearms training and the mindset of winning the fight. And let's face it, we carry guns because at some point there's someone trying to kill us.
Yes.
So that's a fight. That's a gunfight.
Yeah.
And it was like, things like, oh, you can't say fight in a lesson plan. You can't say win in a lesson plan. All those types of things. And
That's just stupid lawyers.
Yeah. And it's like you got to throw down the bullshit card because we're talking about officers' lives here. So there was over maybe a 10-year period. There was some good fights in boardrooms and where everybody would come in and at the time Tim Ottmeyer wasn't an assistant chief. He was a lieutenant. He was my lieutenant at the range. So he formed the tactical training committee. So we had us from firearms. We had some instructors from cadet firearms. We had the firearms instructors from narcotics and SWAT in there, and we'd talk about training principles and how to proceed and it was it was chaired by Tim Ottmeyer, but it was me with the loudest voice and my sergeant Charlie Landrum kicking me under the table, and reminding me later, don't try to win everything in one battle. Let's just take one thing at a time. And
all right, so you said you were in class 103, right?
103.
Okay, what were y'all using or shooting revolvers in the academy or automatic?
No, we were issued revolvers, the Model 19.
You were issued a weapon.
Well, we were like everybody else. Had to purchase that weapon.
Okay.
So we all had to purchase the same revolvers, a Smith & Wesson model.
From Bailey's House of Guns?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, bless Bernard's heart. God rest his soul.
How did that relationship come into existence?
It's back then it was, I guess.
Who was sleeping with who to get that deal?
Yeah, I think Bill Bryson, we called him Sunshine, had a lot to do with it.
Uncle Bill.
Yeah, and God rest his soul. He's dead too. And he had one of my 1911s. He's a damn good gunsmith, but good gunsmiths are really slow.
Yeah.
And at one point, I just called him. I said, Bill, where are you at on my gun? I'm not there yet. And I said, you know what? I'm going to come and get it. Don't move. I'm going to come and get it right now. And I went and got it, and like 6 months later, he was dead. So I'm glad I did.
Good move, yeah. All right, so when we were in the academy in 1995, you had 3 weapons to choose from: the SIG Sauer, the Smith & Wesson, and the Beretta.
Yeah, that was always an evolution.
Yeah,
always an evolution.
You were the second class. We were the third class to have automatics.
Say again?
You were the second class to have automatics, and we were.
So that
the
didn't
third
start
class.
until 162?
Yes, just the people just ahead of us.
Really?
They were the first class, yeah.
Yeah, and they could get out of the academy and buy them.
Yeah, well, before they had the choice of blued or stainless.
Yeah.
But
Model
yeah.
19s.
Well, Model 686 is what they were requiring
the
for a long time.
586 and the 686 replaced the 19.
Yeah,
Okay.
Clemente Reina used mine in the academy. He carried it for a while till he went to a Glock.
Okay.
The minute he could.
Got it. Okay. So what inspired that change, I guess, is what inspired them to go from a pistol to an automatic in the academy?
Necessity. It's the obvious. Why would you have just 6 bullets in a gun if you can have 16? And have magazines and much faster reload than speed loaders, and so it's just obvious necessity of evolution of equipment.
And I know the answer to this, but tell me, how long did the obvious necessity take to implement?
Yeah, it took a while.
Decade.
Never. Like I said, never moved fast.
Same way when I went to the academy with Brian, one of my dreams to work there, and I realized he's a humble man, because he's saying he was on evening shift. He's the cadet, wasn't a cadet training. No. That's not what it is. He was the only instructor that taught any firearms at all other than the academy.
Yeah, so
at all.
The first class
you had people with you, but I'm talking about evening shift. These guys on evening shift.
Right.
Day shift they did a few, because I looked at all the sign-ups and the rosters and doing research for the classes. Okay. It was evening shift that they taught them in daytime and evenings. But they're the ones who would come in and work doubles so officers could get some kind of training.
And I'm very proud of that, actually. It's because most of the firearms training staff, they're do what they're told to do, and
Yes.
they teach what they're told to teach. Where I was able to freelance basically, and I worked evening shift so I could teach firearms classes to those who wanted it on day shift. And when we lost the airport range, then we found another one. We taught at Harris County, their firearms training facility on day shift. So and then deputies attended as well. So it was just a perfect opportunity for someone who was hungry, not just to teach, but to teach what it took to win those gunfights and get those officers to go home at the end of the day. It was the perfect opportunity.
Yeah, the first class I took from you was the primary weapon low light course. I thought that was a fantastic class. And I haven't really had any outside of HPD that were as good as that.
I remember we took his class of the TAC pistol. We took that.
Right.
Yeah.
That was after.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, and then but nobody taught people how to transition between a shotgun and a handgun in the middle of a fight.
Yeah.
There's that whole obsession with
So does.
Brian and I always had. Now I want to say something. Brian, I was not as nice to you as I should have been at the range when we worked together. And seriously, when I was a little overbearing. Not me, at times. And the more that I'm around, the more I realize how much sense everything you did made.
Well, that was part of handing off the baton. Also.
Except for the transition. That was just bullshit.
But, the baton, I mean, I did 40 years with HPD and a lot of that in firearms training. But I'm going to do 60, and the baton, you were part of handing off the baton. So, you were really the first officer that was ready to take over and to continue on a training program. And so, I appreciate that. Yeah, you were a prick at times.
I was. And Brian was, I would try to write stuff in the lesson plan, and Brian's the one who told me, look, you're beating your head against the wall. Just teach it. Teach individuals. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Because if you put it in a lesson plan, and it doesn't go to city legal, but everybody thinks it goes to legal services and city legal. Lesson plans don't go there unless you're dumb enough to send them. And then they'll blambast them. Oh, no, can't say anything. They shouldn't shoot people. They should hide, whatever it is. Okay, but he was the one that backed me off of that and got me to just teaching individuals correctly.
Oh, so what bad habits did you notice that police officers would have from training that would translate into gunfights? An example would be, I watched a video one time of a deputy in a shooting, and he raised his weapon, fired 2 rounds, bang, bang, and then put his gun down in the middle of a gunfight, and then came back up, bang, bang. And did you notice that was a problem at HPD?
We look at the problems nationwide. So, and problems like that are classic examples of how you don't want to train. And if you do train where everything is 2 shots, 2 shots through qualification, 2 shots in training, everything is 2 shots. That's how they're going to perform under stress. So you got to mix it up.
Yeah, we saw it in the rifle class that I wrote a patrol rifle class, the first one that was put on after the 40-hour class that SWAT took. Okay, well, and we would say, okay, we would say lean the cover left and right and engage the target till it goes down or turns, and they would go lean it left, bang bang. Then they would stop and start scanning. We're like, still up, bang bang. They would shoot 2 more times, then it would finally turn. And almost everybody did that. They would shoot 2 times, no matter what, until we had to tell them shoot until the target turns or falls.
Yeah.
To this.
It's a threat until it's not there anymore.
Yeah,
and we were able to do that at the airport range, the range that we only had for 10 years before they put a runway over it. But we were out there with sharpshooters and digging trenches and putting in air lines and everything. So we had these steel plates that you hit them and it would knock them down. But
yeah, you and I took class there.
Yeah, if you hold it, we as the instructor, we could hold the button and not let it go down. So and it's almost like the officer, bang, he gets the instant feedback of hearing the steel, and it was like it didn't go down. It didn't go down, and then we'd have to get in their ass and said that's because it's still a threat. You should be shooting, not looking at it with this look of a deer in the headlights.
Chicken looking at a card trick.
Okay. And do you think that still persists today? How have they shifted the training so that they don't do that anymore?
Yeah.
Yes,
Training is it's been an evolution of a shift. It didn't happen overnight, but it's there. It's where it needs to be. And I was very comfortable when I left that it was in good hands.
Well, I tell you what, I have noticed the baton gone to John Domain and Galindo. Okay. Yeah. Phenomenal instructors. Phenomenal. Impressive. And they've got a low light class, and I'm getting ready to release a video to help police officers prepare for their low light class.
Yeah, because those guys love to teach. And then G on evening shift, he loves to teach.
Yeah.
And those guys, they get it done, and you got to want to, because it's hard work,
Yes.
And I don't know how I could ever be like a middle school teacher or something, like every day you got to be up, you got to be up for firearms training, but it's a lot easier, for a middle school teacher. Oh my God, they got to be up, and these kids don't even want it.
I think you would have done it,
and you can't slap them.
So how often would
one thing I want to say about the teaching, his enthusiasm, it didn't change ever from when you and I took his classes 20 years later to when I was teaching with him. His enthusiasm to teach, whatever bullshit he was teaching,
because it was
transition, not transition. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. No, seriously, for whatever he was teaching, never left him, and that was really rare.
Are you not a fan of the transition?
No, I like the transition, and it's a small thing. Okay, we're talking about the difference between transitioning or
we're talking about
combat load with a shotgun,
from handgun to shotgun or shotgun to handgun.
Both. From you wouldn't transition to a shotgun from a handgun. I mean, you run your shotgun dry, and he taught a lot of the combat loading, one at a time, boom, 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 and I wanted to teach more transition. That's what I mean.
We did both.
Yeah, we did both. I don't mean it was some big cat fight we were in all the time. I just meant we didn't do more transition. We didn't do more combat loading. I mean, that was just a difference of opinion.
And I'm assuming you're a fan of officers carrying patrol rifles.
Oh, definitely.
Now, what occurred? Okay, here's the story I heard. Correct me if I'm wrong. Bratton Conley, right? Mm-hmm. I think it was Conley, so the story goes. Back in the day, there was a riot. He pulled out an AR-15 and fired a round or two in the air or fired a round somewhere at something that some assistant chief didn't like, and they decided that officers shouldn't have rifles, and so officers couldn't carry a rifle for.
I didn't hear that story.
I didn't hear that one,
but I can tell you that the rifle program, as it was back in the 80s, needed fixing. It didn't need elimination, but it needed fixing because we had guys out there with Winchester 94s.
That's a lever action.
lever action, cowboy rifles.
I know what a 30-30 is.
Yeah,
Same thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean,
Same model.
Yeah, it was insane. It was
we were told.
training.
Yeah, we were told like in 1995 you could not carry a rifle in your patrol car.
Yeah, but luckily, the good thing about bad guys is they provoke law enforcement and they provoke training. And luckily, the L.A. bank shootout, where these guys, where LAPD didn't have them, and they had to go to a gun shop and check and borrow rifles that they didn't even know were sighted in. And take to this war, basically the street war that these bank robbers were putting on them. That changed everything nationally for law enforcement.
And when SWAT got there in the LA shootout, how long did it last? I mean, they put them down quickly.
Well, one guy.
One
guy shot himself.
Yeah. Well, they. That's fine too. But when the fight between SWAT and because SWAT had long guns, he had a long gun.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, they had big body armor. He had big body armor. So they prevailed because they're better trained.
Okay.
And so
they were skipping rounds off underneath the vehicle, and as the guy was kneeling down and into his thighs, man.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it was. It's a good. It was a good, really cool shooting. Really cool.
Yeah, I heard about that. So if you fire around at the pavement, it'll skip, and I think it flies at like 6 inches above.
Yeah,
the pavement.
6 to 10 inches. It flattens out.
Okay.
And so you got to be aware of that too when you're taking cover from bad guys shooting at you.
Yeah.
So.
Cars are not really good cover, are they?
Oh boy, Joe can go on for about a half hour right here. So
they're not cover at all.
We'll just answer quickly. The engine block's pretty good.
Yeah, engine block's great.
Engine block's great. Other than that, yeah, bullets pass right through.
Yeah, one of the SWAT guys put 2 magazines full on full auto at the engine block, all around it, and even not a thing got through. Not one engine block in the axle. Everything else walked through like butter.
Okay, so SWAT officers carry fully automatic weapons. Do you think patrol officers should be able to carry fully automatic weapons?
I don't think there's a need because then there's a big. It's hard enough to train and get enough time to train now, where you're just like throwing bullets all over the public. So
no.
Okay, so my thing was, and I still stand by this, that I think officers should be able to carry suppressors, because I don't see any need or any reason why an officer has to worry about hearing protection when he's about to, or when he knows he might be engaging in a gunfight. So you're going to go search a building, you're searching for a suspect. Why you can't just put on a suppressor to your weapon?
There's arguments for and against, but suppressors aren't bad. I mean, suppressors are like required in Germany, so you're not a bad neighbor. So they all that gun firing is noisy. You're right.
But I could never understand why they didn't trust officers with something like a suppressor.
Well, same reason they didn't trust them with a flashlight on their gun. It takes 10 years. Like he said, it took 10 years for a demonstrative proof of a need for automatics, semi-automatic pistols, to get officers to carry semi-automatic pistols.
Yeah. I believe, though, the department is, it's grown a lot. It's wisened up a lot, and it believes in equipment. And while other departments under this defund the police crap and everything, our administration, even up to the mayor, said, no, we're not defunding, and we are equipping, and this equipment is necessary. So, Houston Police Department is a department I'm proud to have served in for 40 years, and Houston's the city. I'm still in Houston. I live in the Heights, and I dig the city, and I've got my place way out West Texas that I love to get away. Is
that in Marfa?
Yeah, close to it. Yeah, up there in the Davis Mountains.
Yeah, I've been out there. It's nice.
It's beautiful.
There's some lights out there.
Well, you can actually see the stars. You get out there. Wow, that's.
Yeah, my cabin is 6,400 feet. Is like people say, I didn't even know there was a 6,400 feet in Texas. Well, there is. And my cabin might be the highest house in Texas, but there's like 100-mile views.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I've got steel plates at 2, 4, and 600 yards.
Yeah, he shoots them on his videos sometimes. It's pretty cool. So there'll be like a delay between.
All right, so do you train other departments
I still, with my training academy, Hoffner Training Academy, I still travel around and train.
Okay.
So
Yeah, tell us all about Hoffner Training Academy in your businesses.
I started my company in 1985 because I became a cop because, I want to help people just like we want to help people. We want to keep people safe. But we all know that we can't be the personal bodyguards to everybody, so we get there long after they're hurt or killed and make chalk lines in the pavement or whatever. One of my pet peeves working the rock at Northeast was rapists, because they just seem to keep dumping these girls off in my beat. They dump them after a night of raping them all night long, either naked in a ditch and scarred for life, or naked in a ditch dead. So, things like that just piss me off. So I started my academy so that citizens could learn how to protect themselves. And I always tell, I was just up at a conference in Kansas a few days ago, narcotics officer conference, and I was telling, 300 officers, I said, when you pinned on your badge, you did not waive the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but you have to ensure it. That's why we wear guns, but wearing a gun is not enough. You got to train with it. That's why we all carry a knife. Well, it's not enough to just carry a knife. You got to know how to effectively use that as your segue to your gun, whatever the case may be. So I started my training academies to teach these same things I'm teaching law enforcement to good people, good citizens, good Americans that also want to go home to their families at the end of the day.
Okay, fair enough. And so when you're training other departments, like personnel in other departments, do you see any kind of, do you think like, how would you rank HPD against other agencies as far as discipline, officers, being diligent and actually engaging in the training? Because you can tell, like, when you're in certain training classes that people don't want to be there, don't care. They're just, trying to.
Well, you always have that
it.
when training is mandatory.
Yeah.
When we taught the active shooter, we'd have, officers show up in 5-inch pumps, and
Girl officers.
Yeah, female for the most part, yeah. But and they're having to do all these tactics and everything, and so they weren't quite prepared. They didn't really want to be there, and they just wanted the day to end. But you can only hope that you influence officers with the training, and that I always tell them, and I tell this every class. I said, if you walk away from this class with just one thing that you've learned, then we've all been a success. And don't quit, don't leave after that one thing. Shoot for two. But if it's just one thing, and that one thing could ultimately keep you safe, keep you alive, then it's been a success.
All right. How about training civilians? Are you still doing that, or?
Oh yeah, still doing that. And and the nice thing about those classes that we did is most of them were voluntary. People would sign up because they wanted to be there.
Yeah.
Well, my classes for citizens they want to be there. They're paying for it, so they want it, and they're hungry to get it, and they learn quickly. So it's very nice.
What's the main motivation behind a lot of the civilians that you instruct? Is it self-preservation, or have you noticed a shift in say people's attitude towards the government and not, I don't trust the government anymore kind of attitude?
Well, no, for the most part, it's self-preservation. I don't think any of my students were on, at the Capitol for that party that I know of. I avoid politics a lot because I'm not a big fan of politics, period. But I am of the party of self-reliance. And
okay.
And that's what it's all about. So yes, there is a Constitution, there is a Bill of Rights, but they mean nothing if you don't assure them. So as an individual. So
yeah.
I think though it's tough in today's day and age to be a cop. We all know that.
Yes.
And if I was on the streets the last 10 years of my career, then I would have probably been a 30-year officer, not a 40-year officer.
So you'd have been in prison, probably. We'd have shared a cell together.
I'm always celebrating. I always tell officers too when I go to a presentation, I say I'm celebrating. I'm celebrating because I retired from the Houston Police Department after 40 years, and I never got shot, and I did not get indicted. So celebration.
Exactly. Or you didn't get 40 years to life on some bullshit.
Yeah, and I'm talking about, getting indicted for doing your job, and for doing the right thing, or what you believe is at the moment is the right thing, can now get you indicted. So it's a tough situation out there. I also tell them, I said, you young officers, enjoy these days because these are your good old days.
And their faces would fall when they tell them that. I was at the classes when he said, they're like,
oh no, really?
This is the good old days.
Think about the dynamic that it's true that it only ever gets worse.
As it's being proven,
Yeah.
And and I don't know if
There's no leadership. There's no leadership that makes it better.
Right. I don't know if worse is the proper word, but hard is definitely. It gets harder.
Yeah.
It's harder to do your
More
job.
difficult.
And just to go out there and help people.
Yeah, but what happens when you make that job more difficult is people do it less. In other words,
Yeah, and all of that is a part of the totality of the situation that they want every officer to take into account when making critical decisions.
But isn't that part of the OODA loop? Because the more points that you put in someone's OODA loop, the longer that decision process takes.
But as far as utilizing deadly force, and those officers in their mind weren't utilizing deadly force.
Of course not.
So, but when it comes to utilizing deadly force, no matter how much totality of the situation there is, at that point, that serious bodily injury or death is imminent. That point that it's imminent, you have to use deadly force. At that point, it's really simple. The bad guy is asking you to stop them, because if you don't stop them, you're gonna die. That's your perception. It might later turn out to be a can opener, not a chrome plated semi-automatic weapon that you perceived, right? But at that moment, that micro moment where that perception is imminent, you have to act.
So here's I guess I'll try to say it this way. Training in officers in the 90s versus training officers in 2023. This is what I see. When I first started in law enforcement, the training was you're presented with a threat. You need to stop the threat. You need to either use your nightstick, your flashlight, or your firearm to stop this. Then tasers obviously came in, around 1999, 2000. They started, experimenting and using tasers. Long story short, that was the decision process you went through when you were dealing with a suspect in a physical fight. Now it's, and I see this with officers, and I talk to officers, and this is what they're thinking. Their very first thought is, am I going to get suspended? Am I going to get indicted? Am I going to get sued? And that's when and then once they work their way through that decision matrix, that's when they start, okay, now do I use my taser? Or I can't use a nightstick, or can I use a nightstick? I'm not sure. But then maybe I should use my firearm. And so they've elongated the decision.
Which slows down the officer's response, and the officer can get killed. Yeah, and I understand that.
Well, they totally did away with what you used to call reduce options.
Yeah,
can you explain that to the audience?
Anytime you have to, and I understand the OODA loop, but a lot of people don't understand it. So I use a cycle of reaction, which is basically you perceive, and based off of what you perceived, you choose an option, you act on it, and then you adjust. And adjust is perceiving the need to adjust. But the choose portion is when you have to choose what you're going to do, those options have to be reduced, or they'll take too long to choose, to decipher. Is this situation A, B, C, or D, and do I use 1, 2, 3, and 4, versus just having immediate action response to that perception. If you have an immediate action response, you do that one thing every time, then it becomes automatic. and you don't have to think through all these other things. But in the
I say all this, and the reason I bring all this up is because I think this is why Sergeant Harold Preston is dead.
very good friend of mine,
Yeah,
Harold.
and
I just told him 2 months before he was killed, Harold, when are you going to retire? What are you doing? Why are you working so long? And he goes, I'm going to go a couple more months. And he was right there, But yeah, you're right.
Now I think he's dead because of that very.
Yeah, because he's standing
Issue.
at that door, and
It's not just him though; it's the other 2 officers that are with him. One of whom fled the scene when the shooting started. She didn't. All she cared about was what Art Acevedo tried to cram down everyone's throat was make distance and take cover, make distance and take cover. Not win the gunfight, not overcome the armed suspect trying to murder you. No, make distance and take cover.
Distance and take cover was one of the main things I fought for decades in the department.
Well, I mean, so I say that to say that I think Art Acevedo contributed to his death because he contributed to the mentality that caused his death or allowed his death to happen. And when that officer fled the scene and I think she jumped in her patrol car. She went into the breezeway of the apartment complex and then went to her patrol car while the suspect is shooting the second officer and then walks up and shoots Harold Preston in the head while he's laying there. So I've been told. I'm waiting for the body camera video. Well, I'm trying to get it actually. Is he was alive up to that point. In other words, he could have had she returned fire to win the gunfight or just suppress the suspect until other officers could show up and win the gunfight. He'd still be alive. But he's not. And people don't fully understand it. And I say all that to say this, that I think that's the direction that police officers are being trained to go in is rather than win the gunfight, make distance and take cover, which is something I was under the impression that the department had spent 20 years to try to get officers out of. But then when it actually comes down to it, when the shooting actually started, that's what happened. And that's the only thing that matters. The only thing that matters is what actually happens when the bullets start flying.
And that's, when I've gone to many trials in the support of an officer, in the defense of an officer, and it always comes down to basically action beats reaction. And at that point of perception that the serious bodily injury or death is imminent, it happens so fast. And you cannot be behind the curve at that point. If you're behind the curve, there's a very good chance you're going to catch a bullet and then maybe another one. Same thing happened to Bill Jeffrey, another good friend of mine.
Yeah, me too. Good friend of mine.
And, it happened so fast. And before he knew it, he was, hitting the neck. And this stuff happens fast. There's no time for politics when all of a sudden you perceive serious bodily injury death is keyword imminent. There's no time for politics. You can survive being chastised, penalized, indicted, but you can't survive being dead. And that's the bottom line. And you have to trust your perception, and you have to act on your perception, and you have to win the next few seconds and stay alive, and then start putting all the puzzle pieces together. Why did this happen? How did this happen? Et cetera. But survive that moment is critical.
Okay, fair enough. I just don't think the department really wants that. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Tell us about your knife and your symbol, and I'll put it up on the screen too.
I understand people are getting that tattooed on their arms. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was at a SWAT conference in Michigan, and this SWAT guy comes up and he pulls up his sleeve, and there it is, the Hoffner shield right there in his body. I said, "Damn, I think I gave him a free knife." that damn warrants a free knife, I think. But actually, I'll start with the.
Joseph has his.
All right, I believe it. I'm. Yes, sir. That is the workhorse, the 3.5 snap knife. So there's a lot of good knives out there. My knife actually at SHOT Show this year was voted as one of the top 3 knives at SHOT Show by a writer from Police One, and there's a lot of knives out there, but this one is designed to open with that gross motor skill snap. You don't need to use the thumb stud or find a button on an automatic or something. So when you're being pummeled and you just snap it and block, they're skinning themselves on your block, which department's got to like that. We're not, not stabbing anybody, just defending. So it's a true defensive hold.
What is the department's policy on officers stabbing people as opposed to shooting them? I know what the shooting policy is.
It's a weapon of opportunity. Same thing if they used a brick or a rock,
anything,
whatever. So it's weapon of opportunity, or the flashlight.
Yeah.
Have you ever had an incident or a case where an officer stabbed someone?
It's happened. It's never been an issue. I don't know on our department, but other departments I hear about them, and it always turns out okay. It's just again a weapon of opportunity. But we don't. I don't use the word stab. In my system,
Puncture.
You your block, you sweep,
Okay.
good jab or thrust.
Okay.
But there's no stab is not in my lesson plan.
Okay.
Because I don't want the attorney on the other side pointing it out. He teaches the stab. No, we don't do that. So there could be jabs, but
Cut away.
But but in the index divot where you use the index divot to transition between grips, secure and balance, is my logo, and I'm pointing this out because officers, citizens, they love the logo after I explain to them, because it's a shield, and the shield has protected warriors for many centuries, right? But we know the best defense is a good offense, hence the sword. But you can see the eye and mouth will leave for the Spartan helmet because our mind is our most important weapon. All else is supplemental, right? But we're modern day warriors, hence the coat and tie and the front and rear side of modern day weaponry, which, as it evolves, even centuries from now, will still include the blade. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
And but back to the shield, which is an H for Hoffner, but more importantly for honor.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
But
I'm going to put that on my suit.
So that's kind of what we're all about. But I've got so you're going to be very happy to know that the creed is coming back.
Oh, really?
Yes, I'll let you see it here.
Okay.
In a different form, but
that was the other knife I had. It was the bigger one, the Creed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a little heavier, and was it a flip?
It'll
That
still
one's a flip.
you can use a flipper, the stud, or the snap.
Okay.
Now, all my knives will open with a snap.
Okay.
But I'm working on the box for it right now. So I'm going to put this message on the box. Not what everybody want to read. I'm going to have to put on my McConaughey's for this. All right. So on the bottom of the box, for those that choose to read it, it's going to say, "This is for those who have a certain swagger in their step, who refuse to be tread upon and do not back down from challenge, but instead face it with vigor and gladness. For those who choose the uphill path, give life all they can muster, and celebrate who they are while rising above the ordinary. For those who are self-reliant and understand that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are for them alone to ensure. This is for those who achieve while daring greatly and would rather die on their feet than live on their knees. Who appreciates that life itself is their opportunity to make the world and humanity just a little bit better in their stead. This is for those who dig it, do it, get it done, and own it." That gives me goosebumps. That's who my knives are for. And I have one saying, "Let others be sheep." If you want to be a sheep through life, then you probably don't need my knife.
Yeah.
So anyways, open that up, Joe. Check that out. Tell me what you think about that. So you got the zipper pouch, which is really nice because it'll carry my glasses on my belt as well. And it's that knives. I mean, glasses are such a problem.
That's a lot heavier.
Oh, that's a nice one.
Oh
Yeah, that baby is heavy duty.
Wow.
So much heavier than the everyday snap folder.
Oh my goodness.
But it.
When are you going to start selling these?
I'm probably about 60 days out.
Oops. Wasn't enough room in there. There we go. You got to do it like a guy would do it.
Yeah. Right. Or girl with a beard. Yeah.
What'd you call me?
But it's a beautiful knife. It's heavy duty. It's
that's quality
bearing
knife
driven.
right there, Brian.
And you know, it's something
You can
that
change the.
I gotta see this.
The clip,
Oh,
Yeah.
left or right?
left or right side.
yeah, and I've got like titanium milled clips coming.
Oh, really?
For all the knives, including the snap folder, and but that's for someone that wants something thick, heavy, high end, you know, and just substantial.
How much is this going to retail for?
Probably around $350.
Okay.
But it's I'm doing a limited edition of 500, so it's going to be numbered as well.
Okay.
So it's
Where are these manufactured?
we build everything in
What
Houston.
sweatshop are you?
Now, you know, here's what makes us a little bit different.
Another big thing about Brian, if we can tell you
Oh,
about the American made or similar. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We build in Houston. We machine both in the U.S. and globally.
Okay.
So I work hard, for instance, to keep the snap folder at a $79 price point because I want cops to have it. If it was $279, this knife, 6 cops would have it.
Yeah.
So it's
I like that.
you know we're trying to machine more and more in the U.S.
Okay.
As long as it doesn't make my knives out of reach for everybody, including law enforcement.
I like that knife.
You might like this one too. I'll hand this one to you
I'm
first,
gonna-
Tom. This is the War Master.
Oh.
So this is also a heavy frame.
Okay.
With a Tanto blade.
Yeah,
Tanto, whatever.
people like the Tanto, and there it is.
You sell these on your website now?
That one's about 60 days out, also. So, but that's
So this is also experimental?
no. I've been working on both these knives for about 2 years.
Okay.
And just going
like
through
the-
iterations. And
I like the serrated.
getting it perfect, in my opinion. So that's a fun one too. That one's also thick and hairy. That's my first frame lock knife.
Yeah,
Instead
I
of-
noticed that. I
Yeah,
noticed
instead
that.
of G10
Yeah.
scales, you got it's the frame is the knife. So
Sure enough.
that one's nice too. But I'm excited about.
I like the Tanto point.
Yeah. So, anyways,
I like that knife. I like this one.
That's-
What's it
that's
called
nice.
again?
this one is the Creed 2.
Okay.
And basically, the creed of Hoffner's is life is a battle, train to win, carry a big stick, fight with a vengeance, never quit, and live with honor.
Okay. So where do you do most of your training? Is it here in Houston or?
Yeah, I do most of my training here because I can schedule class. People show up for it. Everything from knife to pistol, shotgun, rifle.
Indoor or outdoor?
For the most part, outdoor.
Okay.
But knife is simple. I mean, families might just bring me into their house, and I'm doing their training their whole family with defensive knife.
He's got training knives too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no bandage required. We have knives with no edges, and they're red. And
Can I put your links in my? In
yeah,
the
please do.
description? Okay.
Please do.
Okay, good.
So I'm retired now, and I don't know how I had time to go to work. Maybe that's why the reason they had the Where's Hoff patch on my.
Well, I know you said to me years ago when I was like, how long are you going to do? You're like, I don't know. That's when the real work starts, when I retire.
Yeah, I wasn't lying. I was not lying, Joe. So I thought maybe I could at least slow down 10%, but no, there's no let up. But it's exciting because, again, just like when I was teaching at the department, I'm doing what I love. So training and sharing my knives and putting my knives in the pockets of not just law enforcement, but women jogging at night and kids going to college and stuff is very gratifying.
Okay. So for those of us who have not been, what is the SHOT Show? Because I saw that on the
Yeah.
Facebook.
It's the SHOT Show is an industry show of basically firearms. It's the largest industry show to the world. It happens every year in Vegas. You have to be either in the industry or law enforcement basically to attend.
To attend it.
Yeah, the public cannot go.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's they're very, very strict on that actually. So
Is it to buy weapon systems or what is it?
it's to see them. Nothing is sold over the counter. We take dealer orders from dealers there, but nothing at that show is sold over the counter. It's all seeing what's available and then following up.
It's almost all new stuff, or not all, but
Yeah.
showcasing their best. And
Yeah, their evolution of
yeah, a lot of all the new firearms are, they go to the SHOT Show when they're introduced.
Okay, because I've had friends that have gone and I've never gone, and I've always been curious. But
It's fun.
It's
fun.
It's a good time.
Yeah, it's Disneyland with guns.
E-ticket ride.
Yeah.
all right, Joe, you have anything else you'd like to ask?
No, don't I have anything. Just thank you very much for gracing our presence.
Well,
I appreciate it.
Anytime, guys. I mean, we're all of the same mindset, and probably most of your listeners are as well. And we've
all 9 of them.
Yeah. Well, at least 8 of them. We need to do whatever it takes to to not just stay safe, but keep our family safe as well. And we gotta do what we can when it comes to securing the Constitution, making our voices heard, talking to the right people, take your buddies to the polls, whatever. And
What's your website for people watching?
it's Hoffners.com. It's Hoffner with an S because Hoffner wasn't available, and the World Wide Web, and it happens to be owned by someone in the Woodlands. It's the craziest thing.
Wow.
So I got Hoffners with an S, Hoffners.com.
Oh, we couldn't go intimidate the guy into giving up the website?
Yeah, it's done now.
Too late now.
Yeah, it's water under the bridge. So, but yeah, I'd love to, let others be sheep, but live your life as the sheepdog, in charge of your own life and all the decisions that you make, own them and make good decisions and just follow them out. So.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us.
Very much.
Like and subscribe, comment below. We read them all, and we appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you in the next video.